in the drink enough.
Yeah, I definitely have a couple things, that I was, getting some questions on. My dad, unfortunately, had quite a nice injury, so we've been kind of doing some in-home rehabilitation for that. So kind of through him, I noticed he was having like a lot of different questions about things. So I was like, I think maybe a lot of people would benefit just from kind of learning a little bit more about, why injuries happen, how to best treat it depending on when it happens and stuff like that. So I have a couple points I figured would be good, but if anybody has questions, of course, feel free to jump in at any time.
Yeah, no, you do your thing. And then, like I said, I got a couple of emails, so I'll probably just shoot a couple questions just from the emails. But if anybody else has questions, definitely let her know.
Excellent.
I definitely have a question.
Yeah.
My elbow, I've been nursing my elbow for like the entire quarantine, and it's gotten to a point where it's hard to do certain exercises.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, let's kick it off then. Can you tell me about like what happened?
Yeah, so I know exactly when I did it. It was last summer, believe it or not, and I lifted my daughter. She was on, we were at dinner, and she was on one side of me, and I lifted her like sitting, and I just I felt it in my elbow. And I've had another elbow injury where it's kind of like been on like the inside of my elbow. Here, let me, it's been on like the inside. This one is literally like right at the I think it's the bursa sac, but like it's right at the tip of my elbow. And the things that really bother it are, I was telling Brian in email today, the push-up drags. It hurts when I'm leaning on all my weight on the left side and I'm dragging with my right, or when I do man eaters and I can do the push-up, like the push-ups hurt it, but it hurts it less because I can bear some weight on my right side. When I do the push-up and I'm holding on to the weight with my left side and I'm, pulling, I'm doing like a row with my right side, I can't put all my weight on my elbow. And it was such a sharp pain today. I had to just stop. And, now, unfortunately, I'm not like electively going to get it. I mean, I probably should and probably could in the next couple of months now that things are, but it's hindering. And I think I've emailed Brian before and been like, even at a time push-ups hurt it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was doing them against the wall, but it's right at the tip of my elbow. I have no idea what it is. And,
would you say it's like painful. On the bone? Like here?
Here, let me try to hold my phone. It's like, I feel it like, like right in here.
Okay.
Like right here.
And do you notice it more, like, I know you mentioned doing the tall plank drag. So do you notice the pain when it's completely locked out versus trying to bend it and move through?
Probably, because for both things, I'm either holding a push-up position with just my left side, or probably. I mean, and the other thing, it's probably that, because the other thing I notice is if I ever stretch, just with no weight, if I'm just moving, I stretch my arm super fast and I like really lock it, it kills. Then it'll go away. So like right now it doesn't hurt because I'm not like, it's not stretched out. That's probably what it is.
Yeah. My other question too, are you getting any like clicking or popping when you move the elbow?
No clicking and no popping.
Gotcha. And how often would you say it happens? Like almost every time you work out, or just every so often?
Yeah, I'd say at this point, I really do feel it when I'm working out. Like I said, it really depends on the activity. I'm trying to think when else I've noticed it. Maybe when I've done like tricep dips with weights, I have to do both hands. Yeah, it's kind of affecting me a little bit more than it was before. And it's pretty painful. When it is painful, it's painful. Right now it feels like nothing, and when I really aggravated it, it sucks. Like it hurts.
Gotcha. Have you been doing anything for it, like after the workouts, or taking anything?
No, and I should take something, and I should ice it, and I'm not. And I should.
I'm always like the biggest proponent of, especially right after the workout, icing down right away, 20 minutes.
Okay.
And it's so you can even do it 20 minutes on, take like an hour off, and then throw it right back on. Because a lot of the time right after that workout is when you're going to get the most almost like inflammation. Whoa. We good?
That's so funny. Sometimes if I sign off and sign back on, it helps, but it just depends on like the device you're
I'm
on.
like nervous to talk again.
Oh, there you go.
Better? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, so kind of what I was talking about right after the workout is kind of when all of that inflammation kind of really, takes place. A lot of the times too, one of my talking points too, the reason we get pain and like that sharp feeling sometimes is it's actually inflammation in the joint, in the muscle, whatever it is. And it's the inflammation in that that's pushing on the nerves. So it's kind of putting fluid into a space that it isn't necessarily there. And it ends up pushing on those pain receptors in your body. So a lot of the times it's not even so much an injury as it is just that general inflammation that's causing the pain. So even if before you start your workout, we always say try and do like a heat before the workout and then an ice after to kind of help. You would want to loosen things up a little bit with the heat before the workout and then ice right after, again, to kind of help constrict those blood vessels, help with the pain and help prevent that inflammation from getting worse. It sounds like it's been, maybe it was like an acute injury that happened a while ago that is now kind of turned into a chronic thing. I would say the best thing for you is like we talked about doing the ice after right away. If you're noticing it too, it picking up, you can always do like a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory. So you could do like, just an Advil or a Motrin and try and keep up with it for at least like 2 to 3 days consistently. Again, if we take it once, it'll help with the pain, but it won't necessarily help with those anti-inflammatory benefits to kind of get all of that out. So I say like, try and follow the restrictions. Obviously don't go overboard with it because then you worry about, gastric issues and stuff like that. But try and stay with that kind of course for maybe 2 to 3 days and see if that helps. The other thing too that I wanted to talk about as well is really, I noticed when we get into the workouts, we're like pressed for time. It's always so quick with our transitions. It's now all of a sudden, okay, 3, 2, 1, here we go. We're right into these movements and we don't necessarily always like get ourselves like set up before we go into it, especially for like a move like those tall plank drags. I would say maybe start from the knees, get yourself into that plank position, set the shoulders back, maybe do like a soft bend in the elbow, really get your muscles set for the move and then try it out. Because I feel like a lot of the times I notice with myself, if I try and grab something quickly or lift something up really fast, like I'm almost not ready for it. And that's where you can really get into that, almost like painful, sharp, something tweaks really fast. So I think maybe if you tried a couple of those things, that might help. And then as things start, sorry, my dog's barking. As things kind of start, opening up again, maybe some physical therapy might be an option.
Yeah, I think I need to do that.
Yeah, because they'll really work on just some like, because we don't realize there really is a lot that attaches at the elbow. You have all of those wrist muscles, all the muscles in your hands attached there, and then as well as like all of the biceps, triceps, stuff like that. So strengthening those, even like those small muscles, like that makes your hand do this and this, all of that attaches there. And if you can strengthen those, sometimes that might help you give a little bit more stability to the joint.
Okay.
But
Awesome.
definitely
Thank
the
you
ice.
so
I'm
much.
always like a big proponent of the ice.
I should.
Especially
Thank
just
you.
like right after that workout, if you can just like throw it on, try and relax for a couple minutes, it should hopefully help a little bit.
Yeah, I have one. I could totally do that and still like kind of go about. So yeah, that's a good idea. I should totally do that.
Yeah. Keep
Thank
us
you.
posted.
I will. Thank you very much.
Of course. Does anybody else on kind of jumping on that?
Well, I was going to jump in on Jamie's. So I think I have like tennis elbow or some sort of tendonitis going on, and it pops in on the weirdest places like seal jacks and star jumps. Like I'm getting over I guess moving the arm fast, it gets really sensitive. And so I'm just wondering, I mean, you were talking about heat before the workout. Like I was thinking like, would a compression sleeve provide enough heat?
Yeah. And I would say too, so you said it's like a popping, clicking kind of vibe?
No. It's just a sensitivity. Like, so certain things like Jamie was talking about today, that move underneath the drag, that made my elbow really sensitive over there. And it's been going on for the entirety of the quarantine. So yeah.
Okay, yeah, definitely. If you could heat before the workout, and actually for you, I think that's a good point, bringing up something to maybe help stabilize it, like a sleeve. I like the compression sleeves, you know, whether it's like knees, stuff like that. I think just in general, it's not going to provide so much stability as like a brace per
Yeah.
se. But that extra just level of compression, it does, I think, you know, provide some benefit. And especially when, like you said, if you're getting like a little bit of instability, something like just feeling a little bit off, I would say try the sleeve, but probably the long-term solution would be more of that strengthening.
Yeah.
Because again, you have all of these muscles that surround the joint to help keep that stability. And for the elbow specifically, like we talked about doing those kind of motions that control like palms down, palm up. You can do those motions just with weights, kind of like sitting in a chair, super slow. Again, like we do a lot of bicep, tricep work, but we don't really focus so much on like the small muscles. And sometimes if those are weak, that can contribute to that instability feeling, just a little bit of sensitivity like you described.
Yeah, I was
Have
gonna
you
say
iced at all either, like after the workouts?
I'm not an icer.
it's,
Yeah, I'll be honest.
it's true. I feel like none of us are. You know, even in quarantine, we're like already, we finished the workout and we're rushing somewhere else to get something else done.
Yeah.
But that being said, you know, we've been used to driving to the gym, driving back from the gym. So if you can still block out, you know, granted the class is only 45 minutes. If you can block out that time of like an hour and 15 and really devote the time to, you know, putting that effort in with the ice, we didn't even talk about it, but just doing some kind of gentle stretching, kind of getting all of like the wrist flexors stretched out. So like palm like this, again, holding for about 30 seconds or so, trying to do those tricep, bicep stretches. Again, super light, nothing like too pull or anything like that, but just to get a little bit of elasticity, maybe even before the workout, that might be something that's beneficial.
Good.
But yeah, if we could build in the ice, I'm a big proponent of it.
All right. Thank you very much.
Of course. Anybody else before? No? Okay. I just brought a couple points again. Like I talked about, my father unfortunately suffered a pretty serious back injury kind of as this whole thing was going on. He kind of pulled a weekend warrior move and was trying to pull the leaf blower. And unfortunately, he really just yanked his back. So it kind of, you know, my discussions with him really taught me about, you know, I've always been reminded of the importance of kind of core stabilization and kind of maintaining mobility. And we, you know, we all do these workouts, it's super high intensity, but what I have seen a lot of is these injuries that kind of result in us just kind of like jumping right into something, kind of like what my dad did. So I think what I want like everybody to just focus on is, you know, we do I talked about a lot of like high intensity moves like that. If we could focus on taking, even if it's 2 seconds before we start that 40 seconds, 20 seconds, whatever it may be, kind of just thinking in our mind, okay, I'm getting my abs tight. I'm, you know, positioning my shoulders back. I'm really focusing on nice tall posture. When we squat, I'm sitting my butt back, stuff like that. If we can almost like mentally prepare for a certain move, I think that can help prevent a lot of, especially back injuries specifically. You know, if we're lifting, you know, we've got a weight, sometimes we just throw them down to the side and then we go right back into picking them up. But sometimes we're not always ready for that. I think maybe really resetting, kind of again, getting in our mind, getting prepared, picking up those weights and then going into the move, I think that can kind of really, you know, add that extra, you know, measure of safety to kind of protect ourselves. That being said, the mobility aspect, in addition to the core stabilization, I think is very important. F45 is all about these functional movements, so movements that we do in our daily life. And the example I want to bring up is, you know, we're with F45, we're lucky we do like a lot of rotational movements. We do a lot of side to side. which is not so prevalent in our daily life. If you think about, what we do every day, we walk upstairs, we walk in straight lines, we'll reach overhead for some counters, but there's really not much rotation taking place, like us sitting at the desk at our jobs, or sitting at home on the couch on our laptops. Me, I've been on Zoom like for class all day. Like there's really not much. And I think what's important is, like we said, with the mobility, kind of putting yourself into those positions of stretching out the legs, moving into rotational positions of our back, our neck, reaching up overhead, kind of stuff like that, to maintain that level of mobility, so that when we do go into these moves that F45 prescribes, the Russian twist every once in a while with the weights, our body is kind of ready for that level of motion. Because again, if we don't do it in our daily life, it's going to be tough to do it in that workout. All of a sudden, here we go, 40 seconds, bang it out. We got Russian twists, or, just different levels of movements like that. Any questions about any of that, kind of the core stabilization in conjunction with trying to maintain that mobility?
No, but I think that is an amazing point of like the mental aspect of thinking about your abs being tight. I know we say it a million times, saying keeping your core tight, keeping your abs tight. And I know Greg is over here definitely nodding, because I've told him a million times. It really is keeping your head, or keeping in your mind to actually think about it before you do something. And it helps you so much during the exercise, and it will help you get a stronger core as well. A great point.
Yeah. And an interesting fact that I actually learned recently from a trainer was how much more that mind-body component makes it more of an effective workout. The more you're kind of thinking about it and kind of incorporating a little bit of complex moves like what Brian does, you're getting that mind-body component. You're almost like burning more calories, and you're kind of growing your mind stronger by building that level of coordination. So I think when you can really connect, again, that mind-body, what am I doing? What should I be focusing on? Is my core tight? Are my shoulders back? What is my posture like? Am I sitting back on my heels in this squat? Am I not letting my feet collapse down, my knees collapse down? All of those things, if you can kind of focus on that, it really just amplifies the workout and the benefits that we get from it. Cool. Any other questions in that line? No? Okay, the other thing I wanted to talk about was foam rolling. I feel like I get a lot of questions about what's the purpose of it? I see people throwing themselves on this big log and just like flying across it. What do we do here? So I want to talk about just the purpose of it. So foam rolling, it is like a couple different aspects of it, but the main purpose of foam rolling is myofascial release. So when you have a muscle, it's composed of a bunch of different fibers, but there's a tissue layer around the fiber. So our muscles have elastic components. The fibers kind of sit on top of each other. So when the muscle gets stretched, they pull apart. And when you contract the muscle, they come together. Now a fascia, it doesn't have the contractile components, the contractile cells that a muscle does. It's just kind of, again, a fascia, a fiber, a fibrous tissue. And a lot of the times we can do an ample amount of stretching in terms of the muscle, but we still might have tightness if that tightness exists on the fascia, again, that layer that surrounds the muscle. And the way to help with that fascia to loosen it up is the myofascial release. You can do that through massage, but a lot of people do it mostly with that foam rolling. Now, an example of a fascia that gets tight very often would be the IT band. So the IT band is not a muscle. It's not really something you can stretch. You would have to do some sort of treatment in regards to myofascial release to kind of get that to loosen up. And we see always in our runners really getting tight IT bands. So it is important. I see Eileen nodding her head, our runner, our resident runner. It is really important to kind of do those things to help treat the fascia as well as the stretching of the muscles. Now, when you foam roll, sometimes I see people in the gym, Joel, my poor IT band. I saw that, it was funny. When you foam roll, what I see a lot of too is people like, like flying over the foam roller. It's like they're ready to launch. And, you know, it probably feels good, you know, just to kind of get the blood flow moving to the legs. But the real purpose of myofascial release is to kind of target those specific points within the fascia that are tight. So what I mean by that is if you were to roll super, super slow kind of through your quad, through your IT band, you'll feel a certain point. You're like, whoa, like this is on fire. This hurts so bad. Now, the goal is to find those points. And the only way you're going to do that is by going super, super slow through the foam roller. When you find that point, stay on it. Stay on it for about 15 seconds or as long as you can tolerate. And then again, slowly work through that muscle again, or the fascia. And then slowly roll back to that point, another 15 seconds. Maybe you'll find another, and then keep moving through. Because the whole idea is similar to massage therapy. The pressure of it, you want to bring blood flow to the area. You want to bring all of those healing components that are in our blood to that area to kind of help wash out the tightness, wash out any lactic acid, stuff like that. And again, really get that targeted pressure of 15 seconds and then super, super slow, move it through. So we're not flying over it. Again, it probably feels good. And, you know, there's still benefits to flying through it. You're getting blood flow to the area. It feels nice. But again, if we're really focusing on that myofascial release, you're doing the 15-second hold and then moving through. All right.
You're supposed to stay on that spot for 15 seconds.
15
until
seconds.
it goes. I mean, is it supposed to, the pain's supposed to go away by then? Or
I wouldn't say it's going to go away. Yeah, I wouldn't say it's going to go away, but the goal is to move off of it again and then slowly work your way back to it. And eventually it should help start to loosen.
I don't know, it's been
Greg's like, good luck.
3 years and it still doesn't work.
Personally, I mean, doing the IT band, I have some lower back issues. Just doing the IT band before a workout, it makes all the difference. So I strongly recommend the foam roller to every single person, but it's awesome hearing kind of how you should do it because I see everybody doing it a different way. So I do like the steps on how to do it.
And a lot of the times too, you'll see people with
I do that with my sciatic. I have a really bad sciatic down my right side.
Mm-hmm.
And I foam roll. I constantly do it. And I do it exactly what you're saying. And actually the chiropractor told me to do that. It gets the blood flowing and it actually loosens it.
Excellent. Yeah, it definitely, and it's, I gotta say, it's not comfortable in any way, shape, or form sometimes. But what you can do is kind of work with your body. If it's something that's, you know, oh, it's too much, it's too painful to put all of your body weight on, manipulate yourself so that maybe your arms are helping to support you and then try and work through it. If it's something where you're putting your body weight on it and I'm not even really feeling it, like for example, if you were rolling out your right calf and you're like, my body weight's not even really enough for this, take your left foot, cross it over the right foot, kind of double up that pressure and then try and work through it. And you can really foam roll a ton of stuff. You can work out your back, your IT bands we already talked about, calves, quads, hamstrings, all that stuff. And again, it is that goal to kind of release the fascia, bring blood flow to that area, and then hopefully get it to release. I'm a big fan too of doing it after your workout, because again, when we're moving things around, we're helping to push out some of that lactic acid. Again, always drinking water to help prevent that buildup, and just kind of getting things moving.
Wine
Water. Drink the water. Exactly.
So it's better after than before, or
I think it's good. It's good regardless, but I personally like it after because your body's already warmed up. And like we talked about, when we do these hardcore heavy workouts, you know, the byproduct of all of that energy that's being expended is lactic acid, and that's what creates the soreness in our bodies after a workout in the next couple of days. If you can get that to kind of move around, that's why we always tell people, like, if you're super sore, go for a walk, you know, get that blood flow pumping to push that lactic acid out. And the foam rolling would definitely help with that.
Okay.
That being said, I should make a point. If you have an injury, an acute injury, I don't recommend foam rolling it right away. because a lot of the times with our injuries, again, we're getting that inflammation. So the body's kind of sending all it has to heal that specific part in the body. And for example, if I, hurt my quad in a workout and I tweak something, my body's now sending all this inflammation to that area. And I was to go and foam roll, I would make that inflammation worse because I'm putting pressure on that spot. So there is this balance. If it's an acute type of injury, you don't necessarily want to foam roll right away. The same being said for the stick rolling or even very heavy, intense massage, maybe give it 2 to 3 days, kind of wait for that injury to calm down, wait for that inflammation to go down, and then work on working through that foam rolling. And again, starting off with very, very light pressure, then building up to more higher pressures.
But if it's just like nagging lower back pain.
Nagging, go for it, full send. No, yeah, whatever you can kind of tolerate. We do have, there should be something said, we should listen to our bodies. If something is sharp shooting pain, I would back off. But if it's that, like when I foam roll, I get that super intense, dull kind of aching, that is typically okay and safe to work through. It's the sharp pain that we kind of want to stay away from, that something might be getting worse. Hi, Brenda.
Hey.
Any other questions about the foam rolling?
Mandy, it's kind of along the same vein, but I've seen massage guns like everywhere now. Can you kind of explain how that works? And I know you're a big fan of them.
Huge fan. Use it every night.
Not a planted question either. I'm just curious how it actually works.
Sure. And actually the massage guns, some of them come with like different heads. So kind of depending on what your goal is, you can kind of alter it. But the whole idea behind the massage gun too is, again, the myofascial release, but also kind of saving our hands. You'll see a lot of athletic trainers and physical therapists using these types of machines now because it saves their hands from doing the actual manual therapy of kind of digging into those pressure points, digging into those knots of muscles. But again, with that whole goal of bringing blood flow to the area to kind of break up any adhesions that might be occurring. So with specifically for the Theragun, it's different levels. You can kind of turn it up, turn it down, but it's these vibration therapies that, again, is increasing blood flow to the area. And depending on the level of pressure you put through it, you can kind of help break up those spasms or just kind of get things worked out a little bit, kind of bringing blood flow. Mm-hmm.
And Joel had the question, do you have any recommendation of which one?
For the Theragun?
Or any of the actual massage guns that you like?
I went with the one with the best reviews on Amazon. I believe actually the brand is called specifically Theragun. I wanted the one that had the handle. Actually, why don't I just grab it? Give me 1 second. I will show you.
I used it a couple of weeks ago, and it really broke up the soreness a lot faster than I was expecting.
Yeah, they're absolutely incredible. I know, Mo, you're on this call right now. Mo has one. It's amazing.
So they make them with different ones. I got the one like this because I liked the positioning of the handle. Some of them, they're kind of targeted like this, straight down, and your wrist is kind of bent like this, which I wasn't really loving. Whereas if I can keep kind of like a neutral grip with the wrist, I thought that would be a little bit more beneficial. They also make some of them with a moving head, so you can kind of go here, then you can also kind of target it down. So it's kind of just what preference was, but this one seems to be working very, very well for me. And I've been doing like single, sometimes double workouts. So I've been using that almost every night just to kind of loosen things up. I'll use it sometimes before the workout as well, really working into the calves, quads, all that stuff. IT-Van, it's really, really worked well for. So I'm a big fan. And it saves your hands, which is nice. Any other questions?
Are you getting commission off those sales?
I almost should be, right?
They should sponsor you.
I gotta write an Amazon review first, and then
Yeah.
Any other questions in regards to that? No, good. All this stuff again is, these workouts that we do, all of us, I'm including myself in this, but really I should put it on you guys. You guys are in fantastic shape. Like you don't even recognize how intense these workouts are because they've become like almost easy for you all. But this is a really, really tough workout. The ones that Brian's been putting out, all the ones that F45 does, it does take a really strong toll on our body. So it really is important that we, like talked about earlier, with the core stabilization, maintaining that mobility, icing when we need to, foam rolling, stretching, all of these things, Theragunning, that we do take care of ourselves so we can continue to do these workouts for a long time. Any questions? I do have one more point. The question I always get a lot is ice versus heat. When do we use it? Why do we use it? What's the point? So the heat is something, again, it heats up our tissues. It's bringing blood flow to the area. It's loosening things up. Is that something we would want to do right after an acute injury that just happened? The answer is no. So we never want to heat something that we just hurt. We would want to ice that. And we want to ice it because, again, ice constricts blood vessels. It's going to help with pain, all things that we would want to do as soon as something happened. The benefits of heat, again, we're stretching things out. We're getting them looser. Before a workout, heat's going to work great. Ice, constrict, pain for after the workout. The thing with heat too, it helps kind of like stretch out the muscles. So it might help you kind of get prepared. If something feels a little bit tight before, you want to maybe stretch it out a little bit with the heat. That's something that's really beneficial. And then the time frame. When is it appropriate to heat after you do get an injury? I would say kind of listen to your body, but probably 48 to 72 hours. And then you can kind of start moving into that, moving out of the acute phase and into that kind of, all right, we need to loosen things up a little bit and kind of help bring the heat, the blood flow, the healing components kind of to the injury. Any questions?
I have a couple questions.
Couple?
Just one is my personal one, and another couple are based on emails. But one, is there any warm up that you would do specifically for, say, the lower back? I know the lower back is a huge thing that we hear almost every day at F45. Like what kind of warm up other than rolling out those IT bands, rolling out the back? Is there anything else that you would recommend?
Sure. I actually really like some of the aspects that F45 incorporates the warm up. But that being said, we only really do some of those moves for about 15 seconds. And if you're somebody that is suffering from a low back tightness or really any other type of injury, you really want to book out maybe 10 minutes prior to the workout and work on that stuff. Even if you just tune in, I know Brian does the workouts 8:30 on weekdays, 9:30 weekends. Even if you tune in as Brian starts reviewing, what's going on, the exercises for the day, if you can start warming up then and really spend a good amount of time doing those exercises, I think that's going to really help you. That being said, I love, if you're just laying on your back, double knee to chest, single knee to chest, really working on that rotation. So we do the feet flat going side to side. We also do the one where our legs are flat. We bring one leg out where we keep our arms out to the side. Both of those are really good. Again, we're getting that spinal flexion, but we're also getting that spinal rotation. I think it's more about spending more time doing those warm-ups that we already do. So again, build it into that, time that you're explaining the exercises, Brian, or if you can maybe start the workout on your own, doing those warm-up exercises at say, 8:20 as opposed to 8:30, building in that extra time. Because the whole idea behind a warm-up per se is we get those muscles ready to work. You warm up that muscle again so that we're getting that elasticity, things aren't so stiff. We've worked into these motions. We don't just throw ourselves into them, especially with weight. I think that would be something that would definitely help somebody, especially if they're suffering from some tightness at the beginning or stiffness rather, going into the workout.
Yeah, no, that's awesome advice.
One thing, Amanda, didn't you say at one point that it's important that the stretching is really only effective or is more effective if you hold it for a certain amount of time?
Hold it for just like you said, Greg, hold it for a certain amount of time. Now, that being said, it's very different the time that you're holding it and what you're doing when you're doing it. You don't want to do static hold stretches for like a minute and 30 until after the workout.
What about
Now, that being
before
said, you do want to do 15, maybe even 30 like dynamic warm up types of exercises. So like we talked about, moving side to side, moving double knee to chest, single knee to chest, kind of actively moving through those ranges before the workout, and then work on that mobility, static hold, minute and 30 after.
Got it.
Yep. Because again, when we do those static holds for about a minute and 30 seconds, that's when you'll actually get the muscle fibers to start lengthening. And that's a good thing after a workout because we're already warmed up. However, if we do those types of static hold stretches prior to the workout, sometimes it can even actually predispose us for injury. Because again, we've already stretched out something that maybe shouldn't have been stretched out. And then you can't sometimes perform as well. For example, if you were to do a 100-meter sprint and your muscles are typically kind of here, but now you've already pulled them apart and you've stretched them, their ability to contract and kind of pull back in together, it might be a little bit compromised. So they've actually done studies and they've seen that static hold, again, for that long period of time can actually hinder performance and even sometimes predispose you for injury. But like we talked about, if you do it after the workout, kind of increasing that mobility, that's all a good thing.
Okay.
And again, like you said, you're not going to get that lengthening until a minute and 30,
Okay.
not just these like 10-second holds. You're not going to do much.
Thanks.
Yeah.
And then, I'll just follow up just my last question. I got at least 4 or 5 emails that said people that couldn't make it to this, knee issues. And I know you hear it a lot. I hear it a lot. All different types of knee injuries that kind of come up before class, after class. Kind of, what do you recommend in regards to before workout, after workout for knee? Because it could be very complex, if you will.
Yeah. A lot of different parts to the knee and I'll try and touch on all of them. Definitely, like we already discussed with the back, you got to get warmed up prior to our actual warm up in the class. Again, if we can get that 10 minutes, even if it's just jogging, doing some walking, kind of like bring your heel up to your butt, bring your knee up to your chest, all of that stuff to get those muscles ready and activated prior to the start of class. I think our warm-ups are great, especially if we don't have any injuries. It's going to get our heart rate up. It's going to get us prepared. But if you are suffering from something, you are noticing that something's just like tweaking, stuff like that, you got to put that extra time in at the beginning of the workout. Now, that can also include heat. I wouldn't say for a knee, I would necessarily heat the joint of the knee, but you can totally heat the quad. You can totally heat the hamstring. You can even totally heat up the back. Sometimes that's all connected, like the hips, and then work from there. What sometimes F45 incorporates those mini bands around the knees. I'm the biggest proponent of those because again, we touched on earlier how there's motions and movements in our life that we just don't do in every day. One of those things is those outside hip abductors. So the muscles that pull our hips out. If we're walking kind of straight line, walking upstairs, we're not activating those muscles really at all. And a lot of the times knee problems are created because those muscles are super, super weak. So my second thing would be to strengthen. And not just strengthen your quads, not just strengthen your hamstrings, because we do a lot of that kind of in our F45 workouts, but you gotta strengthen those outside hips. And it's almost as simple as lying on your side and doing that kind of clamshell motion where you stack those knees at a 90-degree angle and you just lift that top knee up off the bottom one. And if you're not getting results from that, you can put a weight on that top knee. I've even gotten creative at home and I'll hold like a can of soup on top of that knee and then try and lift it. And again, it's all to strengthen those outside hip muscles, which will help keep our knees kind of in line. A lot of the times knee problems develop from that weakness, but also because things are imbalanced. our patellas end up getting pulled outside, getting pulled inside. And if we can keep that tracking in that nice straight line by keeping our muscles balanced, that really helps with the pain. And then like we spoke of, after the workout, ice, 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 baby. I'm, again, a big fan of it. It just helps with that inflammation.
Can I ask one question? Kind of piggybacking off of the knees, and you just were touching a lot on strengthening the hips.
Mhm.
I have a torn hip labrum. Yeah, so I did years ago physical therapy, and it helps me manage through it. And now I am pretty certain I did the same thing on the other side because I know what it feels like. I know I'm like falling apart. So any advice for hip before, after? I obviously like ice, the clamshells. I remember now that you're saying that, like I remember doing that in physical therapy, but yeah, any other advice? I'm sure there's a lot of overlap with the knee because again, I remember doing a lot of the band stuff. Anything else that I should and could be doing for hip pain, which I'm also having on my left side?
Yep. So we talked about the clamshells. You can also do the straight leg raises. So lying on your side, legs out straight, lying on your stomach, kind of working those glutes. So like a prone straight leg raise is also really good. For you with the hip, especially with labrum too, typically there's like a certain point when you do a certain move that you feel it click or you feel like a sharp pain. I would say work in the range. This goes for any injury too. Work in the range that's pain-free. So for example, if you go into a squat and you're noticing a sharp pain at the bottom, like almost at your 90-degree mark, bring it up a little bit and work in the range where you're not feeling it. Same thing with like a shoulder injury, right? If I'm doing a chest press and all of a sudden I'm like, back here, I'm really getting some sharp pain in the front, work the muscle just a little bit higher and maybe make the move a little bit more of a pulse. So you're working the muscle, but you're not kind of pushing yourself into that pain range, the pain range where we inflame things, we make things worse. Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions in regard to that? No? Everyone's good?
That was amazing. Thank you.
You are amazing.
Thank you so much.
Of course.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. And honestly, guys, if something comes up, don't hesitate. Shoot me an email, shoot Brian an email. I'm always happy to answer questions.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
If
Will
you need
do.
help, if there's a
Thank you.
certain injury too, it can kind of help send you some exercises, back stretches, shoulder things, stuff like that. I know, Mary, I owe you a shoulder program.
I'm a paying customer. Come on.
Yeah, I actually have a question. What do you think about foot inserts, like putting inserts into your sneaker? Like, do they have to get fitted? Like,
Yeah.
I have like IT band issues. I have a foot thing going on, and I went to a doctor and I felt like they were like, oh yeah, just put in some inserts from the store, and I was like, that sounds like it could actually like hurt my gait or my jump, or I was just kind of weary of that advice.
Great question. So yes, so we were always taught was a lot of the super soft insoles aren't necessarily good. The reason being, if you think about it, our feet, we have a fat pad on our heel that kind of, cups that bone. And we were designed as primates, right? So our body wasn't really built to have these like super, super soft cushions. What you almost want is something a little bit more stable to kind of support what's already there. I know, Emily, I recommended some it's called Superfeet is the brand. A lot of people have had success with that. Another brand is Protalis. They're a little bit more expensive than the Superfeet, but I've also heard really, really good results for that. It kind of depends on what your foot structure is. Do you have a super high arch? Do you have something that's, really, really flat? But I think there's also a lot to be done as we're doing the workout. So for example, when we're doing our deadlifts, we're doing our squats, almost like working on creating that arch, by strengthening those foot muscles. Because a lot of the times, if we can strengthen those muscles, that'll really help us, you know, with everything, our hip pain, our back pain, you know, just to help support us. So if you can really focus, like I always like to think of like almost like clawing the ground with our toes and creating the arch when we do the workouts, sometimes that helps. That's not always enough. And that's when an insert could come in, something a little bit more structured as opposed to something really super soft. And the coupling of the two of those things usually helps.
Gotcha.
I have my super feet right here, actually.
There you go. Yeah, I've heard a lot of people have success with those. And then what's interesting, I've heard at least, you know, it kind of stinks, but a lot of people get the fitted orthotics, which can be very, very expensive. Sometimes they don't get good relief from them. They're too painful. Sometimes they're too rigid. That's why I think the super feet are nice. They kind of use that plastic component, but then they do have like a little bit of like a soft part that can be a little bit more molded. But yeah, it can kind of work, you know, whichever you think best. But definitely kind of get that support in your foot as you're working out, and then couple it with that stability piece. And the Theragun.
You know, I really just need to like get in there with my foot.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Massage really works wonders to break up any adhesions, but just really brings blood flow to that area and brings the healing components of our body. If you think about it, you know, our bodies take injuries left and right. Like, you know, some of the workouts we do, we're injuring ourselves, we're tearing muscle fibers apart. But the body is such a good healer. It's always bringing those components and those good things. Another point, I always talk about drinking water, but every cell in our body is, if you think about it, it's made from what we eat. So if we're putting, you know, really nutritious, good quality food in our body, that's what's helping to heal these types of injuries. Whereas if, you know, I hurt something and now I'm going to McDonald's, I'm like eating these things that have nothing, you know, it's going to really prolong those things. And now what's trying to be healed is now composed of not good things, right? So that's another big part, and what I've been trying to get some family members on board for as we're going through a healing. So
She's not talking about me.
Unfortunately, the Oreos in my house, they have to go.
What about bourbon?
The bourbon's always accepted. That's weird.
Mandy, there was a question on the chat.
Are
there any areas of your body that you should not use the Theragun on?
Yes, that's actually a really good point. Don't put it on bone or something that is like very superficial to bone. Again, you're going to kind of really inflame those areas that you don't necessarily want to. That being said, like the patellar tendon, I'll put it on there just very lightly, just again, get a little bit of, you know, something, you know, blood flow there, but not too much pressure where it's going to inflame it more and make it worse. So definitely you want to get to, I've actually bruised myself too, because I've actually hit the bone and been like, ooh, nope, wrong place. So if you can stay, yeah, not good. If you are using the Theragun, try not to hit those bony places.
Cool.
Excellent. Any other questions? Anything I can help with?
That was very helpful.
That was
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
Excellent.
That was awesome.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much, Amanda.
Good.
work.
Guys, always shoot questions if you have anything. Always here to help.
Will
Yeah,
do.
if you have any follow-up questions that you can't think of now, just shoot them to me or Amanda. We're happy to answer them.
Excellent.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good job.
All
Thank
right,
you.
guys.
And,
Enjoy your evening. Happy Memorial Day.
Eileen,
One more.
check
Bye.
tomorrow morning. Don't miss it.
Woo!
can't wait.
Here, you want?
Bye. Thank you.
I'm going to start on the IT band now.
There you go, Greg. Get it going.
Oh, they're so
Bye.
cute.
See you guys.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.